All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. It's your favorite time of the week. Once again, it's Thursday and it's Keepin It Rio time. And I'll tell you what, guys, the last few weeks, I haven't had roofing guys on. I've had people from all different walks of life, and it's been awesome. But I always love to get back to my base, so to speak. And I love talking to some of the leaders in my industry, finding out how they got into the positions that they've gotten themselves into in life and the successes that they've found. And today, I got a special treat for you guys. One of the best in the roofing industry, ladies and gentlemen, is gracing us with his presence today. And I am beyond excited. I've had like 6 cups of coffee in anticipation. And I also love the background because it's the same colors as my company. So without any hesitation whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to welcome today's guest, Josh Steinberger, who is the owner and HMFIC at NextGen Restoration, to the program. Josh, thank you for being here, my friend. How's everything going?
My pleasure. Thanks, Chuck. Life is great. No complaints whatsoever. Always happy to jump on, especially for a fellow roofing owner, industry guy. I've known you for a long time. Same thing from afar. And I appreciate it. I think it's going to be a good time here to chat with you.
It is, for sure. I love watching people succeed in this deal and build and grow and develop something that's absolutely amazing. And you've done that. So I always like to kind of go in reverse order and then kind of work our way back up. So we're going to jump into the time machine real quick here. And the first thing I love to ask when I meet any business owner, entrepreneur, is number one, especially with roofing, how did you get into the roofing industry? You know, what hit you in the head that caused you to one day go crazy and say, you know what, I think roofing would be an awesome opportunity and jump into this industry? What was your initial foray into the roofing world?
Wowzer. Do you want the long story or the short one?
The long, man. We got us a podcast here.
All right. Well, I will. We're gonna let it rip. Unlike most of the Furus, that did the thing and all the things, I got into. You unplug something. It just got weird. You still have me, Chuck?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. He's moving things around in the office here, so it got weird. But so I got into the roofing industry because I was actually in door to door, and I was with AT&T. So way back, I started going door to door. I started with a company called Global Marketing Enterprises that was set up to, I thought, was a like Fortune 100 company. I thought they were huge. And this is back in 2006. So once upon a time in the time of this was like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days type time of the year. And I thought I was going to go in and be Matthew McConaughey in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I was going to go in and sell Joe Blow from Schmo and come up with advertising stuff and kind of do that whole shebang. And in the process of, interviewing with this guy named Don McConville in Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, that's it, Jack, whatever you just jiggled. No, it's not. It's still fucked up, but you jiggled it and it was better. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, just jiggle it, baby. That's all you got to do. That's always the answer.
Now we're working. I can hear everybody, all the things again. It's January. It's Cleveland. There's 2 foot of snow down, and I go in and I interview. So I had spent time on Google and did the whole shebang of wasn't even Google, I guess. What was that back then? Monster. So I had been doing tile setting for about 2 years just prior to this. And I was like, I want to get the hell out of the trades. I hate grout. If you've ever messed with grout or cement, like just the drying out and like the sandpaper thing, what that was. I was like, I need to get the hell out of this. I think I want to get into sales. I want to get into whatever. My mom always joked when I was a kid that I was going to be a potato chip truck salesman. No idea how the hell we ended up on that one, but that was like my entire childhood was like, you're going to go and sell Lay's potato chips. And I'm like, okay, are they rich? Why is that what your destiny for me is going to be? But all right. And so we end up on Monster. Monster's got, obviously a little bit of everything. And I'm looking at marketing companies, and I'm looking at sales and marketing, going back and forth. And ultimately, sales and marketing is the same thing. And so it was marketed, obviously, as a Fortune 100 company. You're working with the top of the creme de la creme of companies, and they represent AT&T, MasterCard, Visa, all of these big companies in marketing and direct marketing and sales. It was a very bland website when I come back to think about it. But originally I was thinking, like I said, when I read the ad, I immediately thought Matthew McConaughey, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And so I'm like, click, I apply and I don't hear anything. A week later, I get a phone call. Come on in for an interview. As business professional, you got to wear a suit. I'm 21, barely 21, 20, just before 21, right around there. And so a suit for me back then, it's homecoming. Like, all right, we'll put the homecoming suit back on that doesn't fit. And I look like a Goomba, and everything's square, absolutely disheveled. And we go in Seven Hills there, Northeast Ohio. We sit down. I have an interview with the guy that's probably in his mid 30s, maybe a little bit earlier, late 20s. Now that I think back of it, he's got a giant, maple credenza, a huge executive desk in his office. And it's just, it's got that like taste, that fine where everybody's wearing a suit, like the office is buzzing, the Wolf of Wall Street vibe, like corporate-y, but like all the shit I was looking for to get out of construction, right? I don't want to swing hammers. I don't want to be physical. I want to be able to, like, I have a 1.25 GPA. Like I was a terrible student. And so we interview, and it's like their whole process is a 3 interview process. You go in for the first round, which is essentially they shake you down, see if you're an idiot or not. If you're not an idiot, they invite you back for a second round interview. So make it through the first interview. I'm like, Don, whatever it takes to be you sitting where you're at behind the desk. That's what the game plan is, which is their big sell. And so they invite me back for a second round interview. So they say, block off my day for 4 hours. Come back in a suit, same thing. And come back like the week later, they scheduled it. So we come back a week later. I jump in a 1995 silver Pontiac Sunfire with a guy named Vince that at the time was like 2 years older than I was, maybe. He's a baby in his early 20s. Same thing. They're like, hey, it's a job shadow kind of thing. Take him out to the field for a 4-hour second round interview. And so we go out, Vince. We're selling cable internet. We're knocking on doors. There's 2 foot of snow. We're trudging through, unplowed sidewalks, unplowed driveways, the whole shebang. Looking back, but in the moment, none of it seemed odd. They gave me an AT&T jacket to put on over my suit. I'm freezing my nuts off. It's ice cold. It's wet. I'm wearing dress shoes. None of it is dressed for the weather. And so we go to a neighborhood. We knock on doors for 4 hours. We sell 3 people phone and internet for AT&T. The whole shtick was when they brought out the fiber optic cable and internet for Uverse, which now has since gone away. But it's, one of those, hey, it's a new product in the neighborhood. So cable and internet for half of what you pay for Comcast, Time Warner, whatever, your normal stuff. And by the way, we'll give you HBO and, all the things. So why don't you just change over your stuff? And at the end of the interview, end of walk around with Vince, he goes, hey, you see that stop sign? If you can hit it with a snowball, I'll put in a good word to get you the job. And I was just having a good time with Vince, to be honest with you. So I pick up snowball. I'm like, I played baseball. I'm a D1 guy. I got this, right? Boom, hit the snow, the thing. We go back. He goes into Don. I do a 3rd round interview with Don real quick. They're like, so he went out there. Vince says you have aptitude to be able to do the job, blah, blah, blah. So, we'll let you know. Right. Keep your phone with you tonight. You'll get a phone call between 7 and 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock came around. I did not get a call. No information, no nothing. 8:15. Boom. There's Vince on the phone. Hey, man, we'd love to offer you a job. I'm like, way to be late. I'm panicking for 15 minutes. I'm like, I thought I did sweet. And I hit the stop sign. And so get the job. And I flunked. Dude, I failed bad. I was a terrible door-to-door guy. Cable, internet, the whole shebang. Got to get a social security card from somebody right there. Got to get, a credit card number from them if they fail credit. It was a situation, man. And they nagged me out and tried to get me to quit. And I was there. I was done. I had gone on, I'm living with mom, so I didn't need a lot of money. But the big commission there was $115. That's somebody was with Bell South Pacific, and we got them. They went to Time Warner, somebody, and we got them back. So we get a win back. That's a 3-piece. That's phone, cable, internet, and had to have already been originally somebody that would make a whopping $115. And so the expectation was to do at least $100 a day in revenue, and so you're making $600 a week. It's not even like nothing, but I was making enough money to actually pay my bills and live with mom and pay my gas and basic stuff. So it was more about like the atmosphere of what they taught. Conferences with like the whole nationwide. It's a huge company called Sigcor. And so like we would go through this, and they had a monthly newsletter that had nationwide like printouts. You want to be in the magazine, you want to have your name on the top of the thing. Our region there, like our office had 3 or 4 guys that were like regularly the top guys that were on like the regional producers list, and were like, printed in this monthly thing that they would ship us stuff for. And I was just like, I got to get in the magazine. I get in the magazine. Yeah, this would be so cool. Well, I sucked bad. And they sent me on my final foray was, this would be like in today, if we put everybody in a bus and dropped them off in the neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
It's not like I go out in my own car. It was like, hey, you jump in the car with 4 other dudes, and whoever was the leader of the day was the one that drove. And if you didn't have a car and you got to take a shit, you find a bush, like straight, again, full suit wearing the whole shebang. You're looking like an idiot in the field. It was the things that we did in the field were insane. But so they sent me on a business trip to Columbus, Ohio, to work out of one of the other offices that was down there, an established office that they had. And they had expected me by the time that trip was over to have quit. And on like day 4 of a 5-day, 6-day trips, like the second to last day, they assigned a new territory to me and sent me into an MDU, which would be in the time, it's a multi-dwelling unit. It was an apartment complex. And they thought that was the end of me. Again, I don't have a car. They dropped me off there. I was the only guy working this apartment complex. And if you know anything about apartment complexes, in order to talk to people that live in them, you have to be able to get in that front door to just even get to doors to knock on. Well, I don't have a key. I don't live there. And so, I think that was a big piece of like, this guy's never going to last. He's not going to, he's coming back crying. And, I sat on the curb there for probably, I don't know, half an hour, just like looking like, what the hell am I doing here? I don't know who to call. I don't even know what the game plan is for plan B. But I'm like, get me the fuck home. And as soon as we get home, I'm done. We'll go back to tile. We'll figure something else out. And I was like, well, I'm here all day. This is like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, nobody's come to get me till 6:30, 7 o'clock tonight. To be back at the office for like the 8 o'clock bell ceremony. So I'm like, I might as well try, right? Like, let's make some money out of this. And so somebody comes out of the building. I sneak over and like creepily get my way in the building in the door that was cracked. And of course, broke college kids are like, you're going to give me free HBO and save me $30 a month? Sure. And so it ended up being where I killed it and did, like 50% of the buildings, each one of the buildings that were there over the next 2 days, I signed everybody up and had, set like records for like a 48-hour period that was there. Yeah. And so I get back and Don's like, yeah, dude, we totally thought you were done. Like that was the end of it. So I get back, they immediately promote me into leadership and they're like, you figured it out. You're good. And for the most part, I did. In reality, from moving there forward, I actually wasn't terrible at it. But I always tell my guys, we teach, I stole the entire process and systems from Sigcor that they taught me there. 4 impulse factors, 5 steps to conversation, 8 great work habits was all shit AT&T and Sigcor gave to me. And like, this is how we teach you to sell door to door. And so I was like, well, I mean, they're $1 billion corporation between all the moving parts there. I'm not smarter than they are. Why would I in any way, shape or form, try to reinvent anything that they had? That system was designed to take people that didn't know how to sell anything door to door and do it. And so, sitting through that process, we got back and they promoted me. Everything was good. We got into leadership. And so we teach my guys that the one thing that's like the hardest thing for sales guys to truly, really master, it's not, I mean, you got to get out of the car. Your biggest door is the door you got to open to go up to the right. Like all the tchotchke shit that we sell our sales guys, and sales guys joke around to each other. And it's like kind of like that circle. But the reality is like the hardest thing that we have to learn in sales is how to be indifferent. And it sounds really simple. You're like, what do you want to do? I want to talk to my customers the opposite a sales guy would, because they don't want to be sold stuff and I don't want to be salesy. But the reality is, until you really have a good grasp on sales and you've done sales at a high level and you've been successful at sales, it's impossible to be indifferent to your customer, your client, because you need money. And the only way to get money is the person standing in front of you. And so until you have so much money or relative amount of success that you can look at that customer and legitimately, honestly, internally believe you don't give one fuck whether or not that customer signs up with you, you do business with them right then and there or not, until you can believe that in your being, you're going to have problems and you're going to struggle with indifference. And I get guys, same thing today that we have that struggle. And I'm like, until you find that point where you're ready to quit, one of two things will happen. You'll either quit or you're going to figure it out that day. And you're going to come back and you're going to be like, it was like a light bulb. Because for me, that last day in that multi-dwelling unit in that apartment complex, I can look back and see like the moment when I was like, oh, I was quitting. I had already given up on the job. I just had to do it because anyway. And so the reality was I didn't have a big pipeline, but I personally completely checked out of the role. I was like, hey man, I got some new cable shit. Do you want it? Like, it's kind of cheaper than what you have and you get movie channels. And people were like, yeah, I mean, I guess. And I was like, oh, so I didn't really like go in like, hey, how much is your bill? And all of like the talk point sales stuff. It was just like, hey man, what's up? Do you want it or not? Right. And if you don't, oh, well, I'm going to go there. And so that was how I got into sales, like from day one, like into sales. I got promoted in Cleveland. They sent me to Kansas City to open an office. So it's how I got to Kansas City originally, all the way back in 2008. And so I finally got to be the guy. I got to be Don, right? They gave me the office. I shared the office space. I started training, hiring, recruiting, same thing, all of that. It's only a couple of years later. It was like 2.5 years later. So I'm 23. And we're recruiting Monster, Craigslist, wherever people will apply. And it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, right? This was essentially the office, the company split money. It was essentially a 50-50 pay plan. At that entry level of it, the rich get rich part was very MLM-y, and like I needed to promote out 10 other offices. I needed to have 3 offices, 700 downline that were all, selling $100 worth of revenue a day. Because I also then make $100 off of every downline there ever was. So as long as you have thousands of downline, you make millions of dollars. But when you got 30 employees, selling, they average, half a sale a day amongst all of them. And so you're like, okay, I'm making $1,500 a day. You multiply that by 6-day work week. It's like $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a week in total revenue to the company. You take out your monster overhead, which we were spending at that point to recruit at the level that you had to deal with turnover of 20-year-old kids going door to door for cable and internet. We're burning through probably $2,000 a week ish in monster fees. I had an office space there that I shared with one of the other owners that was in the area. So we had like half office rent, but we still had like a nice corporate office to aid in that recruiting and interviewing process. And so you carry all the stuff. When you slice it all down, it was like, I did all this fucking work. I moved my whole family and life to Kansas City for $4 G's a month. And it was like, I was making that almost as just a rep back in Cleveland, living on my mom's couch, more or less. Like, I didn't have any bills. This is crazy. What am I doing? So I'm like, I'm in that headspace and I get a phone call. Hey man, a buddy of mine is up here doing this roofing thing. He tells me that insurance companies are buying roofs in Ohio if they're missing one shingle. Like, I'm a construction guy. It was my stepdad, so he's been in construction forever, not roofing specifically. Mostly drywall. But he's like, I'll find some Amish guys that'll put the roofs on and all that. And like, we'll figure out that I can do that. He's like, but I can't at all figure out how to go sell this shit. They're telling me you need to go door to door. He's like, that's what you're doing right now, right? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we do. Build teams, we go door to door. And so same thing in my head. It went ding. Hey, if I take everything that we're already doing here, the only thing that we hate about the company and the place that we're working right now is the fact that we work our nuts off for $114. Like that's best case scenario. We love the process. We love the team. We love all of the other parts of what we do. We're like, this is awesome. It just is shit money unless you pull the lottery ticket. That means you're the guy that's going to be the guy. It was like that. Then it would be, worth it there. But if not, as a job, it was a terrible job. So it was like, all right, so I'm gonna fly home this weekend and like, I'll give it kind of like a test run for the weekend. And so I flew home to my hometown. It's raining cats and dogs, which, nowadays we're like, yeah, we don't really like knock doors in the rain. Fucking pouring rain, but same AT&T, snow, rain, shine, didn't matter. 6 days a week. We were out in the doors, 10 hours, dripping wet. Insanity for $115. So I was like, I'm going out. I don't care. And I went out. I sold 3 jobs. Right? I have no idea. I had 3 people that I knocked on their door that had shingles missing that I said, you file an insurance claim. I think that they're going to pay for your roof. I have no idea why or beyond any other information other than you look like you need a roof. Your roof looks pretty old and it's missing shingles on it. Right. And the guy that had put my stepdad onto it goes like, hey, just let me know when the adjuster's coming. Like, go get some deals, right? Go get some people to file claims and then let me know and I'll do the next thing, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. So day 1, it's raining. We're like, okay, cool. I call my office. Hey, I'm not coming home. I'm going to stay up here for the rest of this week. So we wait for the adjuster appointment. State Farm claims that were turned around in a few days. So we had adjuster appointments already on the phone booked that week. And so, this is Friday, Saturday on the weekend. The adjuster's coming out middle of the week, Wednesday or something like that. So we sold a couple jobs, no contract, nothing, on a fist bump and a handshake of like, hey, I think you filed a claim. We called the 800 number, it got it done. And the adjuster appointment shows up. So adjuster day comes like, hey, hey, Dad, tell the guy, whoever we're talking to, this is what's up. Okay, cool. Phone call comes back to me. The adjuster's at 3:00. The guy says, be there an hour and a half before the adjuster meeting. So 1:30, I'm told to show up at this guy's house. I'm like, okay, why do we need to be there so early? He's like, just be there an hour and a half early. Okay. So I tell the homeowner, hey, we're coming. We'll be there at like 1:30, waiting for the adjuster. Apparently they maybe show up early. I don't know. And so I get there and this is like the skeevy of the skeevy guys.
Oh yeah.
Right. So Paul Harris was a big name way back then in Cleveland. He had gone out with all kinds of lawsuits for doing all kinds of bad stuff. This is one of the guys that he fired because he was such a shitbag. And so he's like, all right, cool. Set the ladder up. And he gets up on the roof, and I'll never forget. He went in like the middle of the back of the roof and grabbed it like it was a Persian rug and did one of these with it. And like a 4-foot section folded over. He's like, all right, it's good. And I was like, what the hell is going on right now? He's like, it's cool. The adjuster will be here in like half an hour. We'll tarp it as soon as he's done. I was like, okay, I think. It had shingles missing. He's like, wow, you don't want him to say no. Like, okay. Anyway, so we sit out front, sit on the tailgate of the truck for the next hour and a half waiting for the guy to show up. Guy shows up in his white van, right? Full office, decked out on the inside. Back in the day, ready with his checkbook, the whole shebang. The nicest guy. I wish I could remember his name. I think it was Kurt. Nicest adjuster in the world, dude. Like, he gets out. He's like, what's your name? I love it. Awesome. What are we looking at? Where do we got this or that? We walk through the inside. He takes pictures of the water. There's a couple leaks on the inside. Takes some pictures. We get on the roof. He's like, sweet, I'm totally buying this. I love it. Looks at the back. He's like, wow, this one's really bad. Looks at the front. He's like, oh, yeah, I would have paid for it for just that. And I was talking to him like, so if all that was missing was this one tab here, that one over there that was on the front, he's like, you would have paid for the whole roof anyway. He's like, yeah, Ohio, man. It's Ohio. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, well, it's like a matching state, but not a matching state. It's like kind of a matching state, but like, yeah, it doesn't matter, man. We're going to write you a check. And I was just like dumbfounded. Like, what in the world is happening? Okay, cool. Right. We get done with the inspection. He jumps in his van. He leaves the door open. He's like, hey, man, have a seat right here. Let's talk about it. Typing up the whole estimate. 30 seconds later, prints off a check. OMP, the whole shebang. Like 30 square roof for like $9,800 with OMP and the interior on it. The prices were nothing back then. They've about quintupled in my career, and proved it all. we're all good. I'm like, okay, awesome. He's like, actually, I think I got another one with you right here, like 2 streets over, right? And I was like, I mean, I got another one 2 streets over. He's like, yeah, you want to knock it out right now? No, we didn't have any prior warning, so there was no prepping of the roof for that one. And we show up to that one. He gets up there, same thing. He's like, yeah, I got a couple missing off here. We're good. Writes a check for that one, same day, same everything. I was like, okay, great. So good news. I never have to talk to this crazy guy again, because apparently you don't need to have giant sections of shingles missing and whatever he thought he had to have and whatever that was. And so from then on, it was like, hey, go out, sell some stuff. And we made some phone calls with some other guys. I got some contingency stuff put together. I typed everything up. I should say I typed it up. My wife typed everything up and made it all pretty and PDF'd and took it to Staples and got, 2-part carbon. So we leave all that. And that was how I got in. It was just me and my stepdad, and he'd get the Amish guys to build it. I'd go sell it. And it was like, hey, we'll split everything down the middle, 50-50, whatever the net is when it's done. And, so it was pretty lucrative. At 23 years old, I went from making $100 a job to making $4,000 a job, $3,000 a job. And I still got royally fucked on commission. Every year that they went, it would be like every job at the end of the job when it capped, I'd have a familial, like, financial battle. Be like, yo, you're 23. You don't need 3 G's for this. Like, what are you going to go buy with it? And I was like, I don't fucking, what does it matter? This is what we agreed you're going to pay me. And so it went from 50-50 to 40-60 to 30-70 to like, every time I made a move, it was like, yeah, that's kind of like enough or not enough to finally, I was like, I just took a $90,000 salary. And at the end of the year, they bonused me out, and I had a number in my head. And as long as it was my number, I'd motherfuck them and tell them they were taking advantage of me, but continue rowing the boat. And that was how we did it for about the next decade as we built it. So the first half a year, 6 months or so, we did our, the living room couch kind of, office. Next year I was like, hey, we need to get an office space if I'm going to recruit and we're going to do make this an actual business. I need to have somewhere where I can go and be at work. He had a home office, but he was perfectly fine. He's like, I could work here fine. I was like, that's great for you, but I can't. If you're going to do that, I'm not going to get off the couch until 4:00. And 50% of the days, I'm just not going to go to work. So, if that's cool, that's cool. But otherwise, I need to be in like a motion where like the day is like scheduled and bucketed and it makes sense. And so yeah, that's my entire like tip to getting into sales, to how I got into roofing, and from then on it's just been business.
Yeah, it's been all gravy since, right? No problems, no bumps in the road, nothing. I love that story because I've talked to so many people from our industry, and myself included. The day I got into this industry 27 years ago, I had no idea that morning when I woke up that I was going to get into roofing. It had never crossed my mind. And here we sit 27 years later, and it's like, you know what? That was a great moment where I was pissed off. I used to run a drywall truck in Columbus, Ohio, as a matter of fact. And I just had a bad day, and I showed up one day and said, you know what? This sucks. I saw a roofing supply company that was hiring, and I walked over, got a job, and I've never left. I tried to leave a couple times, and it just draws you back in because it's so much fun. But I love the backgrounds of it. So many people come in this, and it's like the biggest success stories start from very humble beginnings. When you're knocking an apartment complex in Columbus, or you're out there in the snow in Cleveland. And I know all about that. I was born in Akron, so I totally know that climate. That's why I live in San Antonio now. But you get that stuff going, and you as a youngster, you can take those lumps, and I'm gonna go out here and get my ass kicked for the entire day. And if I have a great day, I'm gonna make $100. And that's the best that I can really hope for. But at that point, it's like, all right, I like the atmosphere. I like learning. I like understanding the psychology. And the thing that you just hit me with that was the most valuable there is, once you didn't give a shit about losing the deal, that's when you start getting the deals. And I tell people this, I do sales training for roofing companies all over the country. And I've trained my own guys over the years. And I tell them all the same thing. You have to be willing to walk away, and you have to be able to at least give that perception that you just don't care. And, I'm the best guy that's going to come through your door. And if you choose someone else, that's cool. I wish you the best. Don't call me when it starts leaking because you're giving up on the best guy. But getting into it and then getting into roofing the way that you did, going through that process, and like you say, you know, starting out great, then kind of maybe getting a little bit of the short end of the stick as a youngster. I would probably assume, though, you wouldn't trade any of those experiences to get to where you're at now because they've all developed into who you are. And so you get this going, you're doing it, you're successful, you're making good money. It's time to start building a team. Like you said, you get an office space, you start building your team in the early days. And like everybody in this industry, you know, you've got to have something to sell, but in a lot of cases, you don't have anything real tangible at that point. So you're selling the dream to a bunch of people that are coming in that have the same vision that you had years earlier when you got into this. How do you go about finding the people to bring into your organization in the early days when it's like, hey, you know what? I know we don't have anything going on really, but we're going to be awesome. We're going to be in multiple states. We're going to be putting up, you know, 10, 12 jobs a day a few years down the road. That's kind of hard for people to buy into. So how do you find your initial wave of talent to kind of get them out there into the streets, knocking, running leads, doing whatever it is that you guys are doing at that point to generate revenue? How do you find these people in the early days when you didn't have anything really to sell other than the dream?
Well, I will tell you this. I didn't figure out what my role was as like a roofing owner, CEO, whatever, you know, guy in charge you want to give me a name of.
The HMFIC.
Yeah, I didn't know what that looked like what I should be doing to that recruiting piece until honestly about 2018, 2019. So really only in the last 5 or 6 years have I gotten that piece of the puzzle right. And that's because I'm a sales guy. And so like most sales guys, when they start out with this, you know, as a roofing company, you know, you're in a position where you have three different pieces that matter to the business. We have sales, we have building, and we have collecting. I hate saying sell, build, connect because it just makes me feel like fucking Del Medico. But
it's cliche, yes. I know what you mean.
But that's what the business has. Is you have a sales department, you have at some point some function of production, and then you have somebody that has to manage the collection side. And I very early on was like, I'm going to be the sales side. I had my stepdad who handled the production side, and then kind of between him and I guess we sort of I loosely helped with the collection, but my wife probably, I was like, hey honey, can you help? And as that happened and evolved more, she became the collection side. And so talking to, you know, most new roofing people, that's always my first question. Hey, I own a roofing company. Can you coach me? Can you help me? I want to scale. I want to do better, bigger, better, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, what part of the business do you want to be? Like, I'm the guy in charge of everything. Okay, but what are you managing? Are you in charge of sales? Are you in charge of production? Are you in charge of collect? Well, I do all of it. Well, you shouldn't. Yeah. And so nobody is good at all three of those pieces ever. Maybe one and a half, a little bit. And so it's always like, find the one thing that you want to be strong in and go do that and hire other people to do the other two. And so those that start a roofing company, usually because they got shafted on commission or whatever pivot they had from the sales side that ended up in the, I'm going to be the owner. If you have a strong competency to sell, and that's what you enjoy, like if I have to choose the operational piece of the business, even today, after 16, 17 years, like I'm going to close a contract Wednesday in Wichita. I'm going to drive 3 hours to Wichita specifically to meet with one customer who has some relative nuanced things that she would like to have done. And I'm like, I don't trust anybody in my office to not make this really complicated that I'm going to have to get really involved anyway. So I might as well just drive down there, high five the office, have some lunch with them, talk to the customer, and drive back. Terrible use of my time. Absolute terrible use of an entire day to do it. I'm going to get windshield time. I'll get an iPad. I'll get a podcast in. I'll make the best of it with what it is. But if we were going to write down on a whiteboard, we could say that my job role today, that's a terrible use of my day. But that was my day for 12 years, 15 years, right? Until 2018, 2019. If like my day was like in the gym at 4:30, 5:30, I'm showering at the gym. 6:15, I'm driving across the street from the gym to my office. I'm at work at 6:30, so I could work 6:30 to 9 o'clock ish, 9:30, without having other people around me asking me stupid questions that I couldn't do, administrative paperwork type stuff, supplements, and all that kind of thing, and the boring billing side of it that had to get done. And then from like 9:15 on, it was like meet with the sales team, get the sales team moving, and then I go sell with the sales team. And so my ability to answer your question on like how in the early days, how do you recruit? You need to be intentional with it. I wasn't intentional with it. My time was spent early on recruiting, and you talk to all these guys now that are selling in PE and scaling companies in 2-3 years. They've been in business for 3 to 5 years maximum. You're like, well, how are they doing that? It's because they're focusing their time on hiring, recruiting, and scaling, adding pieces to the conglomerate, company, and not working on, let me add 12 new customers this week, right? 12 customers this week is great. And it works, and the cash flow of the things, and where everything's happening, you're touching everything, and you can feel like you're doing it all, but there's no scale to that. And so, early on, it's like sell stuff and post stuff to Facebook. And if I'm selling stuff and I'm going out and closing at the ability that I had achieved, it would be an easy Facebook post. It would be an easy Facebook reel, whatever story, and tagging some of the guys in it and making goofy jokes. But dude, it was about like literally doing what'd you make this week? Here's what I made this week on Facebook. What'd you make this week? Here's what I made. Do you want to make what I'm making? Do you want to have an opportunity like I do? And at that time, I had no social, like you said, I had no social proof. I wasn't famous-ish. Right now, we were at that point of like my career where we're like famous-ish via social media and the way that things like that go. People have heard of me, like you said, somehow randomly. I'm looking forward to getting the full story of like this gas station, which is so funny. But in that process, right prior to that, you're just like, hey man, who do you want? And so who reached out to me? The people that I had friends with. And so if I had 800 friends on Facebook, 690 of them were my high school classmates, and like, people local that were like really tight family friend type somebodies. And so the first team was like my best man, my best friend, my best friend's one of my young like childhood friend's brother, who had gotten fired from the fire department because he got caught doing all kinds of drugs and shit, which I'm like, well, welcome to roofing. Hey,
Yep, there you go.
Don't worry, man. You didn't steal anybody's anything, right? No. All right. Hey man, I'll take it. We're good. Don't worry about it. You make more money here anyway. And so like in that process, that was like the ground up. Who we got was just like whoever wanted to make more money and then listen to some level of coaching and going through that like mentorship process, getting them to buy in and working with them on that, and then getting them to bring their friends in and like rinse, repeat that piece to it. Right up until the business gets to a point where you have to look back at the quality of people that you brought in and who and what they were to say, I have to separate these people from the business of where we're trying to go, because they were great, and going from nowhere to somewhere, they were necessary, and they fit the business in that mold and that shape perfectly. But if we're going to take the business to a new level and a new height and go right instead of left, and start doing things slightly differently, we found out very quickly, like, hey, we got to do this. And so, about 5-6 years ago, we fired off my top 3 guys that were doing $3 million plus a year in residential sales. And, to take a business and cut $9 million off the top line in 30 to 60 days, most people would probably tell you that you're crazy. But I mean, all the way back when, we were in that place where we're looking at the business like it is now today. This was always like, this is where we're going to go. We're going to be that company. We're going to get there. And this is how we're going to do it. And the path was always the same. It was just, Brandon Dawson talks a lot about breakpoints. That's his like big thing on Facebook. You see the ads, everything's all about breakpoints. You get $3 million, you get a breakpoint, you get $5 million break. And it's people to this point, and then it's processes at that point. And then the people that you had at this point can't support the process at that point. So you got to cut the people off and put new processes, then hire new people that are better at the processes. And it's rinse, repeat. So it's always 2 steps up, cut 1 step back. And in that trimming, you have to trim and upscale, the quality of human, of character, of all of what that is. And in going up and up and up to the next piece, to where you're so delusional that you've committed to being a person that almost doesn't exist in society, especially today in 2025, where you're like, we're going to be, and we're going to represent this person. They're going to act like this. They're going to talk like this. They're going to wear stupid ties and suits every day because, you connected with a conversation that Andy Frisella had, where he's talking about people and how they were back then, and people were respectful, and what does respect look like, and certain things generate respect, and all of what those pieces are. And as stupid as little things sound, all the little things add on top of each other, and all the pieces become little ball to a bigger ball, bigger ball, bigger ball, kind of like the nesting dolls, as a toy. And so, that's the process of adding people and scaling. You're either going to grow quickly with whatever you have in front of you, and then have to be willing to cut all of it off like dead toes and frostbite and moldy fruit, or you're going to go the other way, and you're going to just be delusionally, the company's going to be this, and we're going to be a certain quality, where you're going to live a lifestyle and a life so strict that you can attract people because they're looking for something that's not chaotic. Everything in life is going like this, and you have to be so locked in on what, where, when, and why, and have it very, very, very strict, to where they'll just be like, all right, that I can't believe why you would be that way, what these things are, but sure, like, if that's really what we're going to do, I can get behind that idea.
Man, I love that. And ladies and gentlemen that are watching this, that was the most high level explanation of how to scale that I've had anybody explain to me. And I've had some pretty high level people, but you're spot on, right? You get to a point where you have to cut $9 million in revenue out because you realize that you're stuck at that destination and you're not going to get beyond where you're at with that same mindset. Now, this is a huge opportunity for success or failure at this point, right? You've got to have total confidence in yourself, in the systems that you've laid out, in the processes for your company, and in the vision. And then you start to replace those people with different pieces that continue to grow. Now you've got a solid team together, right? And you're building this, and it's like, all right, guys, it's time to scale this into other markets. We're not going to just stay home anymore. We're going to build this into other markets. And this is a whole other venture. I've done this myself. We had 3 markets here in Texas at one point, and the thing that really got me was it was hard to let go of some of the responsibility, and it was also hard to have total confidence in the people at all times. So let's talk about building into a completely different market now. You've got to go, and you're starting this whole process again, right? And it's like, okay, look, I've done this over here. I'm going to do it here now. And you got to start from scratch with that whole deal. Or do you have people that have been in your company that you've given the opportunity to move into other markets and continue to grow and develop as leaders within? What's the mentality as you scale from one market into another in different states? It's not like you're, I'm going to put an office 20 miles across town. You're talking, hours and hours away, hundreds of miles. What's that look like as you continue to grow the company? You get into that next phase. And obviously there are probably some hiccups, but what's the initial phase when you decide to start going into different markets?
Wow. Well, but we're back to the question. Do you want the short answer, or you want the long, really crazy background of my life, armpit of I'd like to forget about it?
I feel like you know which one I'm going to choose. It's up to you. I like the armpits myself.
I speak about the armpit on stage quite a bit, so I don't mind sharing. It's a less enthusiastic part of my life to reflect on, but it is wildly important for these conversations, honestly. So I didn't expand from Cleveland to Kansas City intentionally. That was completely on accident, and it was honestly before I had cut off the moldy fruit. And so in order to kind of go there, we have to go back to before we move states. And so talking 18, 19, 20, right? So 2019, I platformed the company to become the 10X roofer. I was the first Cardone roofing company. We platformed. We went through the platform process. We did the 360. We bought the $250,000 worth of market research and data, right up into the contract to become the guy. So they got some old guy with long hair now that I don't know who would ever buy into that vision, but I was the original guy. And Grant wanted all the equity in my business. And it was like, when we're $1 trillion company or $1 billion company, your 10% that you get left of this company that we're going to build will be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And, initially I'm like, hell yeah, like $100 million sounds good, right? Back to that. I'm not wildly old even right now. And so it's like, okay, well, Grant, you're famous and you're rich and whatever, you're going to help with this. So I just got to do the stuff. And so 19, we officially had 17, 18, 19, we had kind of like done all the moving pieces every year, kind of a little more, a little bit more, a little bit more, all the way until there was no real products left. So 19, full on platform, we get to the table. I'm like, what is my guarantee, right? You're taking all of the equity. I'm going to take a salary of like almost nothing. So I'm going back to $115, cable contracts at this point, which I'm willing to do if, you're telling me in 3 years, you're going to write me $100 million check. Let's do it. Right. I'll figure out a way to live like a pauper for 3 years, to live like a king the rest of my life. I've already done that 3 different times in this career. So like, I'm kind of thought I was past it, but I'm not willing to go backward and unwilling to go backwards. And it was like, well, there isn't any kind of guarantee. And, honestly, it might turn into nothing. I'm like, okay, so you're taking the equity and all the cash flow and all the profit. So if and when this doesn't work, I have no plan B. Like, well, you shouldn't have plan B anyway, but yes. Like, well, I'm not in charge, so it's really hard for me not to have a plan B if you're taking my ability to affect change and row the boat. And so the best decision in my life was to walk away from that table of what that was, and obviously retain the company. But we had identified through that process that we had really great processes. Our accounting was top notch, like all the things that my wife had done on the operations side of things behind the scenes, the CRM information, how we were tracking things, how we were for some reason already on an accrual basis accounting system instead of cash basis. And, every time we turn around, they're like, they send a specialist in to try to fix everything. They're like, well, honestly, we just dug through all your shit and you're weird and it's fine. So 2020, we get locked down. We get smoked in Akron. Fair Lawn got hammered with a 2.5 inch, probably nowadays it would be probably a 5-star hailstorm. And this is like the week that COVID lockdown started. And so I am a tinfoil hat guy from way back and will always be. And so I told my team, I went right to the Facebook and the interwebs. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. We're going to knock doors anyway. You knock a door, you stand back 6 feet. We're already social distance. There's no reason I can't knock doors. Every other company that was competing with us went to this like touch list, hit me on Facebook and we'll come out and inspect your stuff. Stay away, keep your windows zipped up so you don't breathe our air kind of thing. And I was like, fuck that. We're going to knock on doors. We'll just stand back. And so we're balls deep, killing it in the storm. And so schools get shut down, and those that had kids in 2020 will remember this. Private school homework, you do in like 2 hours a day, like the whole school day. I do the whole school day and my homework, 1.5 to 2 hours tops. Public school, lockdown school homework was 10 hours a day for a parent to teach it. So it was like, we're doing the business. The kids are 3 weeks behind on their schoolwork because we're like, I don't have fucking time to go over this stuff with you for 17 hours today. Here's your book. Do whatever your teacher told you. Got 75 things to do. Go do them. And they would do 2 things and get lost in digital land. And so my wife looked at me and she said, "Hey, by the way, I'm moving to Kansas tomorrow." And I was like, what do you want me? What are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, it's Easter. And so we were going to go to Kansas, but I just want to let you know, I'm not coming back. And I was like, okay, well, walk me through that. And so she had resented the ever living hell out of me. For in her mind, I was cheating on her with the company for the last decade, of missed date nights and missed luncheons and missed this, that, and the other thing and all of that. And she was like, honestly, I don't really care if you come or don't come, but I'm taking the kids. We're going to move to Kansas, where she's from, where we were when I had the AT&T thing and I had met her. And, I got to go be around my family so they can help me. It takes an army and a village to raise kids. So I'm going back to Kansas, and my sister and my brother, they got kids, and we're going to like squad up and do the coaching, teaching, and that thing, and get this so we can keep up with this homework. And I didn't think twice. I called my head sales guy at the time, who was the methed out cokehead that was getting fired from the fire department a handful of years before that. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to be in for like the next 2 weeks. I'm going to Kansas. Don't call me unless we're getting sued. Figure out how to do everything else. You guys all know what you're doing. You've been doing it. We're doing it. You're going to do it. We're going to figure it out. Keep the wheels on the track and let's go. And so, AccuLinks and all that stuff is all digital. So a laptop anywhere in the world, we watch what's happening, and deposit checks are simple. And so we went to, Kansas, and I was like, don't call me. And 2 weeks later, I'm like, all right, guys, where are we at? Looking through the CRM, and I'm like, everything's moving. Things are happening. Everything's still happening. It feels good. And I was like, okay, cool. So we got the lay of the land. We got settled into Kansas, and we're like, okay, cool. Life is relatively happening. It's what was on, a giant garbage dumpster fire is now a smoldering garbage can of my life. And so then it was like, okay, so I just need to come back to Cleveland, fly into Ohio like a week a month, 4 or 5 days a month. That's not that bad. Maybe every other week. And then, once a month, figure it out. And so I fly in, I check everything, I high five everybody. Okay, cool. I get into town, everything goes, doubles, triples the production for the week. We kick ass, week's good. I'm like, okay, I fixed all the customer fires, production issues, whatever happened that needed to be, that was like, I need somebody to go stand in front of them and get yelled at to solve the problem. Did all of that for that week. And I'm like, all right, try not to break it again for 3 weeks. I'll see you guys in roughly a month, right? We book the next day. I fly home. I'm there for 2-3 weeks. We do, normal calls. I'm checking in with everybody over the phone. We're checking CRM, bumping everything, keeping everything moving. And, we're doing $12 to $15 million a year for really like the next 2 years or so of pseudo retirement. Right. I work I'm like a week on and 3 weeks off. And so the world starts to open back up. We start to have normal life again. Kids are able to go to school. We'd sent our kids to like a co-op private school type thing. So church opens, the kids start going to a Christian co-op. And so that's only 2 days a week. So now it's like, we can all go back and forth. We can all like fly into Cleveland, spend there a week, and then come back as a family and stay together and do more of this together, instead of me running like on the wild, wild west and her being like, what are you doing? I don't know what you're doing. And so, we did that for like I said, about 2 years, made it through COVID, ultimately found out like, hey, cool, we have an office in Ohio and I live in Kansas, and the world didn't melt to the ground. So it's kind of like we scaled by going in reverse. Instead of opening an office in a new market, I was like, hey, hopefully this office doesn't burn to the ground, and I'm going to move to a new market and just live there. And like you said, 12 hours away, 5 states, and hopefully we can figure it out. And so the company stayed together. Everything worked. The guys were doing the thing with the guys, but with me being away and not having that upskilled level of human pieces, things started to not really even unravel, but like the murmurs started to happen, right? Where you kind of get like the coup and the hostile takeover kind of vibes of what could happen. And I'll never forget, I was actually in Colorado on like a ski trip. It was like going into like the winter. And it was like December or January. It was cool, but not quite snowy in Columbus. And so we got big storm in Zanesville, and we put a metal roof on a house, and somehow quality control and my roofing crew didn't put the bitumen tape on any of it. And so metal on metal with no tape means water just goes wherever it wants.
Mm-hmm.
And it's agro metal, so it's not like it was snap lock where it like was actually sealed at all. There's no sealing that was happening to this, and it ended up being like a trucking business's server farm, where like if they got wet and got ruined, all of their billing and their contracts and all of like their there's an old business, like that's how they have everything. And if it goes away, they're like, we have no idea how to get it back or what to do, and we're going to sue the living hell out of you, and you're all going to go to jail and die. And so like I got a video of the water coming in on like a Friday night here. Servers are here. It was like, okay, did we isolate this and keep it away from the technology? It's coming in the bay on top of a truck. The truck can get wet, no big deal. And we're like, okay, everything's good. I had a guy there, a sales guy there, that was able to go and like just make sure that things were funneled into a garbage can for the night. And I like look at my production manager, who is my best friend, was my officiant at my vow renewal at my wedding, was the best man at my wedding. And I'm like, you're going to be there tomorrow morning at like 9. Like you're going to drive down. It's a 2.5 hour drive to the market that we were in at that time for this job. And like, you're going to personally make sure I'm not going to like, we're not going to get sued and die over this. Right. Cause they're not going to sue you. I'm going to go like, I can't even imagine what the lawsuit looks like on that. And he just nonchalantly was like, no, I'm not. And I was like, you're not what? He's like, no, I don't think that's really my job. You are the production manager. You are in charge of managing the crew, what they do, when they do it, how they do it, and then making sure the quality control was happening, all of that. And so technically this is your fault. All things flow to me. Yes. But what? And he was like, no, I don't feel like it. I was like, do you have something? Did somebody die? What is the logical piece to this? And it was just like nonchalant, like, no, I don't really feel like I have to do that. So I flew a friend of a friend of a friend that was like, industry guy from Dallas, was like, I'll jump on a plane right now. I got 2 hours. I can fly out tonight. Like take the red eye 8 o'clock tonight. I'll be in there at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I could be there tomorrow morning by like 9. Okay, cool. You promise? Okay, cool. So Jesse jumps on a flight. He flies out, puts eyes on everything, sort of kind of gets things put together. He's like, yeah, dude, this wasn't taped up. This is what it was. We got to pull panels apart. And we kind of get that process started to QC it. But my eyes immediately were like, you didn't give one fuck about any of this. I've let you get away with so much and over allowed and made excuses, and honestly probably had marital arguments over giving you an inch that you took 3 miles on that was, called out that's what was happening. And sure enough, that's what happened. So Monday morning I flew to Cleveland and started literally like just chopping heads. It was like, this is insane. We're going to cut some heads off. And so we lopped all the heads off. Production manager plus the top sales guys, like I said, that whole entire group of everybody. It was just like opened my eyes to like how terrible things would go. So we put the office back together, hired a couple more people, put some like relative training wheels in the process there in that Cleveland office, and so made it through the winter, right? Like, okay, no problem. We got $3.5 million worth of builds that we haven't done yet because it's January that we sold in November, December. So no matter what going into next year, we're starting next year with essentially a $4 million year ready to go. And so as long as the other 7 guys I have here, as we hire and fire and hire and fire, we work our way through this. We should be okay. Right. And so we did work our way through that year. Had an okay year. It was like 8 or 9, 10 million bucks. But required way more of my time. So 23 was like, I have to have, like I said, I'm way more involved. I'm paying attention to things more. I'm touching everything all day, every day. And then Megan looked at me. She's like, "We're just going to open an office here?" And I was like, I mean, yeah, but you were kind of like, you don't really want me to do that thing. What does that look like? I was like, if we do, like, it's not like we kind of open up. Like if we do, we're opening an office and we're going back to the 2019 play and we're going to run. That's the play. We're going back to the Super Bowl. Right. And she was like, all right. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. For like the 2 years that we had lived in Kansas City, then I had people that knew I had offices in Cleveland, and they're like, locally here, people in Kansas were like, hey, can you do my roof? Hey, can you do my roof? I had a claim. Somebody paid for something or told me something. Can you look at it? And I had already done, probably 10 roofs a year for the prior 2 years in Kansas of just like, fine, I'll talk. Like, you guys know I don't have anybody here. It's like, we don't care. Just, we want you to be the guy. I'm like, I mean, I can make some phone calls, but like, this is not like I have people that I trust, know, and like that are like my people. This is more or less, I'm going to make a phone call to the supplier and be like, hey, who do you know that's going to be the guy that's going to do this? And, they're like, we don't care. We trust that you'll make sure it's right. I'm like, okay. And so, she's like, yeah, we've done some jobs here already. You should be good. I was like, all right, well, let's get on a broker, or like, made some phone calls. I had a couple, real estate buddies have been doing real estate for like 10 years at that point. So let's go buy an office. We want 10,000 square feet or more. And, that's where we'll hire and start putting management in place for production and all of the different buckets that don't go to customers' houses. And then the game plan for that is backwards retrospectively to like field offices or just sales offices. They have to go to customers' houses, and that's it. If it's logistics, if it's phone calls, if it's text messages, if it's emails, it all can happen at corporate here in Kansas to keep eyes on it. Which means that I don't ever have to be officially in any of these other offices, because they should all really be empty office spaces. They're there for a 10 o'clock powwow for the sales team from 10 to 11, and whoever the lead manager is there to do interviews in. So they can all be really small, kind of like roughly 3,000 square foot little like, storefront type strip mall offices. And we can do that anywhere in the country. And we can scale vertically out of the operational process of everything in our Kansas City office. And we can manage all 100% of all the phone calls, all the crew stuff. And so, so we did. So then backwards, after we had moved and still operated the office back in Cleveland, then it was like, all right, now let's get an office here going, which at that point was, second nature. I was here. So it was like, all right, well, I'm already here. Like, hey, you guys doing stuff? Do you need anything else from me? I had to jump in and physically sell and hand train a handful of guys to get, some level of what's what, who's who here in Kansas City as we started going. But I mean, we were here open about a year and a half in the Kansas City office officially. And then, we got hit with a storm in Wichita. And so the same thing this year. I was like, the guys were kind of in a down year in Kansas City. Everything's down. We're a little bit harder. We had a big storm, but it wasn't great hail. So like we're having to inspect probably 3 to 5 houses to find one that has qualifying damage to validate making a claim for, and run the play of like, let's go get a customer to put a roof on, which is a lot of, work without the payoff. So the sales guys are all frustrated. And I was like, hey, we got 5-star map in Wichita. It's 4 hours away. You guys want to go play? It's, on a 200,000 houses that were damaged. And I think we could do it. And in 9 minutes from when I said, hey, what do you guys think? They were like, yeah, I think so. I was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Made a list of stuff to do. So get in the trucks and head that way, and we'll go do it. And we had that office up and run. We just closed out the first month. Was like 2 weeks into the month. We did $557,000 in the first 14 days that we were there in Wichita.
I love that, man. And I'll tell you what an awesome, inspiring story of, a lot of guys would have let their family go at that point. And they would have been so married to the business that it would have been like, you know what? I lost my family. They moved to Kansas and I stayed here. And the story is sad, but not only did you maintain your family, you got your life better. And now all of a sudden your wife is completely on board with it, wanting to open a new office. So everything's going great, Josh, but we all know one thing. Early in the story, when you're in Cleveland, you're knocking doors. The State Farm guy is pulling up in his van. He's cutting checks right there in the front yard. He's doing all that stuff. Now, my friend, things have changed a little bit in insurance restoration. I know a lot of people, myself included, are trying to focus more on a retail-based model because of the cash flow concerns, as well as the differences in policies and the different things that we've got to deal with. So as you start to scale, I saw a post that you made the other day where you guys were doing 12 roofs a day. And I think you said, it's like 400,000 a week in material bills. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next logical question is, you're waiting on insurance money to come through. I see a lot of guys that scale really large. They get to this point, they go out and sign a ton of deals. They get a bunch of jobs in production. And then it's like, oh shit, like we ran out of money. We don't have any credit lines anymore. The supply houses are looking for us. State Farm's holding our check. We're having to call and call and call and call. So now you get to a new set of problems. And they always say the bigger you get, the bigger the problems, and, you know, the bigger the reward when you figure out the solution. So let's talk a little bit about the solution for this, because you started, you know, a couple decades ago as a guy that's selling phones, knocking on apartment complexes and selling internet. Now all of a sudden you're running a multifaceted organization that's doing millions and millions and millions of dollars around the country. You can't be in all these places. You see that people will burn you on occasion. You know, everything that can happen bad has happened, but you've weathered the storm. So it's like, all right, man, you just stood back up, Josh. We're going to kick you in the balls real quick and see how you react to this. How has that been for you as it pertains to, you know, oh my God, you know, we got $500,000 on the books right here that we're waiting on. We're getting up towards the, you know, the line as far as the credit limits go and such. What's your thought process now as a highly successful scaled entrepreneur? Now you got this whole new set of situations to deal with. What are you guys doing to stay ahead of the game on that?
Well, rule number one of business is know your numbers. And
Yep.
I wish I could say we had a stack about $500,000 of people that owe me money. Right now, I think we just crossed $5.75 million in AR. I don't have a dollar on credit. The way that we have stayed and we continue to stay is that every single Friday at 4:30, all of my suppliers are paid. Thursday night at midnight, all of the payroll comes out for the week, and we reset the week. I don't buy anything on terms unless I have like a $2 million job where I'm buying $750,000 worth of materials in like one go. I either take terms on that or I will put it on my credit line. One of the other pieces of business is you don't get credit when you need it. You get credit when you don't need it, so that it's there and available. So we carry $1 million in business credit at any given moment to be able to move money in and out of for operating expenses and things like that. That's not a day-to-day or for payroll expenses. That's for like, I have a job. I'm going to get 60-day terms on it. I'm going to get a $500,000 check 30 days. I'm going to have $1 million check in 90 days. Cool. I'll go put 750 on the credit line. I'll pay off 500 of it in the 3 weeks that we come from now, literally taking all of that money off the credit line, not putting any into my account, and then floating backwards like most people do, because you're like, hey man, what's the payment on that? It's not that bad. It's, and so that I think that has always been from day one, like when I took my $90,000 salary way back when, and it was like, I'll figure out my money at the end of the year. I didn't make my money until December 23rd. Like Christmas happened, and that's when my bonus check hit for the entire year. And I'd sell $2-3 million a year in my own sales, right? So even if we just looked at it like I get no bonus, I just get my sales commission at like a 10% chunk. They owe me $200,000. I got $90,000 they pay me. They owe me $110,000. Like I know I'm getting $100,000 check in December. And so, that 100 became 200, it became 300. And in that piece to it, I learned to manage my bills on that. So same thing to this day, I take a $90,000 salary and I don't take anything else out of it. I get, rebates and things like that move money around. Half the times the rebate comes into the bank. I put it in the business account and reinvest it back in. I don't put that money in my account. And so I think managing your cash flow to make sure that you are always paying the business and the people you work with, and that leaders eat last, that piece is the most important piece of it. And it's not just I eat last every week. It's that I'm looking at my forecast of, are we going to build more roofs next week or less roofs next week? Well, hey, sales are the sales going? If the sales are going up, what else is going up? Production expenses are going up. I'm going to put one extra roof on a week. Well, that's additional cost. So just because there's more money coming in every week, I don't go, hey, last week I only needed $400,000. There's $600,000 that came in this week. I get to keep the other 200. We wait till the whole year is completely over and I stop spending money. December 24th, we officially end our season, our like annual deal. Nobody wants us to fucking talk to them from Christmas Day till like mid-January, right? Like at minimum, they want us all to go crawl in our hole and die. And so like the first week of last week of December, first week of January is kind of when we look at like, all right, what did the business do last year? What money's in the account? What do we have to forecast for like March ramp up cash flow wise? I stopped paying, $2 million, $3 million a month in bills for materials and crew labor, but I'm still collecting $2 or $3 million a month. So when my overhead goes down to salaries and basic overhead only of $500,000-$600,000 a month, but I have a $2.5 million plus, well, hey, that's now we're officially into like my money time. And so we look backwards into how do we invest it? How do we eliminate taxes? I don't owe taxes. I don't pay taxes. I haven't owed the IRS jack diddly wop, right? Like payroll taxes come out. I pay my taxes on my 90. Sometimes I even get a refund on the 90 grand's worth of taxes they take out on my payroll. But beyond that, I buy apartment complexes. And so we invest, the company invests the company's money and holds the assets in the company's name to where it's a non-taxable event. All the things that happen in and out of the business, they take the on paper tax depreciation, and that flows uphill to me as an S corp. And so I maintain my real estate professional, as that's what I've done for a decade of all of my money going into real estate, to where I can take passive losses against active gains. So the business has $3 million of income that dumped into its, positive cash flow, $4 million of positive EBITDA that happened in December. We're like, cool, man. Because January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all of this last year, I bought 3 properties that all gave me 2-to-1, 3-to-1 in advanced cost depreciation. So I put $250,000 in each of those deals. They're going to give me $1 million in paper loss, $2 million in paper loss. I just got a crypto company that I don't understand all the math behind it, but the same thing, they're giving me 5-to-1 in depreciation. So it's like metaverse type real estate. I made some Googles, I made some phone calls to check the legitimacy of all of it. On paper, it all looks right. Like, all right, well, it's depreciation. Depreciation's depreciation. You're going to give me a K1 that says minus in front of it and 5X of whatever I invest. Well, if I put 250 grand in and I was going to owe $1 million in taxes, but I could pay 250 to offset the full million, I just saved 750 grand. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, that 250 comes back like they're saying it's going to be. It's, a 3X on your investment over the next 3 to 5 years. In 5 years, they send me back $500,000 in cash. And at that point, I have to deal with the $500,000 of positive, return. And we'll figure out what we got to do, taxes on that money, when and if that ever happens. If not, worst case scenario, my tax liability went away this year today. And so I've always worked backwards in the business and the cash flow of making sure that everybody's paid. The IRS isn't owed jack balls. I overpay it. The only one thing I do overpay for, and that's my liability, my actual insurance, my workman's comp and my insurance. I pay through the nuts 3 times more than any other roofer that I've ever talked to does, because most other businesses have their roofing staff, other workman's comp as like general carpentry. Right? They got their liability from Progressive, which doesn't write actual roofing insurance. And so when you get into like this gray area of it, like if somebody were to cut a hand off, they're going to pay the claim and then they're going to drop you and you're going to be completely uninsurable for the rest of your life. And so we're properly insured to 3 stories and above, and commercial, and everything that you could actually do. Torch down, right? We're allowed to run torches on a roof, which a lot of places are moving away from that. And so, I make sure to balance all of our math of every other way in a macro economical way of that, to make sure that the money we are spending is being a high ROI on the money that comes back to us, and the money that most people are spending to just give away to the government or useless areas that don't ever have the ability to multiply and come back. But we find ways not to do that.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this episode and you want to run a successful company, listen to what this man's saying. Adopt this mindset, because he's doing it and it's working. And that sounds so much different than so many other people's stories about how they're maintaining, and there's no doubt in my mind you're going to continue to be hugely successful because you've got that aspect figured out. You put the people in place. You're building this thing to the highest standard. And I absolutely love that. And one thing I do have to apologize to you for is I told you this is going to be about an hour. We're way past the hour right now. And I still got a couple more things I want to talk about. But this next thing, this is how I got you to be a guest on Keepin It Rio. I told you a story about a guy here at a gas station in San Antonio. So let me give you a quick story time, Josh. This is kind of funny. 2 years ago, I went down to Florida for 90 days, and I was working with my friend Lee Haight with his conference, the Blue Collar American Dream Conference. And I was down there helping him with his sales guys, teaching him how to do phone sales and getting people in the door. And I did that. It was a great opportunity. I had a great time. I wanted to be a part of a conference like that. I got to be co-MC. I got to get up there on stage and kind of, do my little deal that I always wanted to do. So it was pretty cool. Well, I come back to San Antonio, and I'm a very regimented person. I recognized earlier when you said, I get up, go to the gym in the morning, I'm doing my thing, and I'm getting everything done before the other people come in. I'm the exact same way. So I get up at 3:00 every morning here in San Antonio, get dressed, I go to the gym. I make a point to do this, at least 5 days a week. Most weeks I do 6. And I stop at this QT, this Quick Trip gas station over here by my house, and I get a C4 or whatever the hell I'm trying to drink that morning to get myself all jacked up to go work out. And I'm wearing the Blue Collar American Dream Conference shirt. And the store that they have over here is cool. I get to know all the employees, especially on night shift, because, there aren't that many people coming in, and I show up every morning and I'm all fired up and yeah, great day and this and that. And so he's like, hey man, I recognize your shirt. He said, I used to work for a guy over in Kansas, and he goes to all those events and all this stuff. And maybe you know this guy, or maybe you heard of him. And I'm like, who is it? Well, my friend, it was you. And I came to find out this guy, I guess, worked at your roofing company in Kansas at some point. I don't even know his name. I never got his name. I don't know if he's still at the gas station. I don't see him anymore. But I was like, yeah, I definitely know who this guy is. I said, I don't know him personally, but one of the people that I look up to in the industry. And I said, as a matter of fact, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to have this dude on my podcast sometime in the next couple months, put that out into the world. But this guy was speaking very highly of you. I could only assume that it didn't work out, which is why he's in San Antonio working at QT and, not in Kansas doing what he was doing. But your reputation precedes you. And he said, Josh goes to all these personal development events. He speaks on stage at these events, and you've probably seen or heard of him. And I'm like, absolutely, I have. So it is a small world. I was born in Akron, Ohio. So, our paths were destined to cross at some point, but I thought that was kind of cool. And I thought, this industry is huge, and the people that really make an imprint on this roofing world changed so many lives. And here is this guy, and I didn't ask him his story. Whatever. But you impacted his life to the point where he lit up like a Christmas tree when he mentioned your name. And I was like, yes, I do know him. And, it's those lives that you touch, even the ones that don't hang on or the ones that don't make it with the roofing aspect. Later on down the road, they're still thinking very highly of you, the way that you taught them, the mindset that you brought in, the accountability, and, that personal development aspect of it. So kudos to you, man. There's a guy here in San Antonio that used to work for you, and he enjoyed it very much. I can only assume he probably didn't, produce at high numbers, but you're famous, my man. People in San Antonio know who you are.
I appreciate that. I know exactly who that is. Little Hispanic Mexican kid. His name's Manny.
There you go.
He was the general manager at a local Kansas City Panda Express. Really high up in their like managerial, like regional thing. And I pulled up for lunch in my supercar the one day, and he ran out, was like, yo, like Wolf of Wall Street. What do you do? Who are you? Whatever. And I was like, yeah, man, we sell roofs and stuff. He's like, whatever you do, I work for you now. Like literally minus the phone call. Like we joke, we have like a recruiting shirt that we like for the gym that we were at, says now hiring on the back. It's got a picture of the dude in the phone booth quitting his job. And it says, I quit. I'm going to work for NextGen. And so that's what like the guys that work for me that wear to the gym, like that's our gym recruiting shirt. But yeah, so like, I know exactly who you're talking about. He did not work out. His wife was going to school for nursing and got like placed in some kind of program that was like, she was like pulling we need to move to Texas. That's where her family's from. But he was one of the first people we hired when we officially started like rowing the boat here in Kansas City. He was in the first 3 guys that we put up here in the office. So that's super cool, man.
Yeah, small world, isn't it? And it's awesome that you know who he is right off the bat, because like I said, he lit up and he was just so excited about that. And I said, man, that's what I love about our industry. And I caught that same vibe from him. You know, he was like, this is a temporary thing. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something big and I'm going to be huge. And I haven't seen him at the QT, so I have to assume that he moved on to something bigger and better. And, you know, hopefully is very successful with it. But, yeah, it's funny how this industry works. And I said, you know, you were probably at that event that I was the MC of potentially. And I said, you know, we go to these conferences all over. I was at Win the Storm a couple weeks ago and RoofCon and all these things. And I said, our community, even though we're spread out all over the country, it's a tight-knit family and we all know each other and we all respect each other. And, you know, if I have someone that says, hey, I've got a roof in Cleveland, Ohio, I know exactly who I'm going to tell them to call. Someone's got a roof in Kansas, I know exactly who I'm going to tell. Well, I got a couple buddies over there, so I might have to flip a coin on that one. But you know what I mean? And it's just such a cool thing. And I really appreciate your story. I appreciate how you literally started from nothing and basically a hailstorm brought you into it. And now you've got the great levels of success that you're achieving right now. It is amazing to watch. And I couldn't be more proud of you and everything that you've built because, man, I know how stressful it is. I was in distribution for 12 years before I decided to get into contracting. And my contracting career has been it's been very unique. You know, I moved to San Antonio. I'd never been here a minute in my life. And I took over a roofing company that was out of business. And we built it back up. We started having multiple locations. We did well. Circumstances happened. We shut it down. That's how I ended up in Florida with Lee for 90 days. He called me up and said, hey, bro, you know, what are you doing? You want to come down here and work with my guys? And, you know, we'll do a podcast in my studio and all that Lee hates stuff. Mm-hmm. I went down there. We had a great time. And the reality is my new business coach that I hired just a couple weeks ago was the other MC of that event. And I would have never met him had it not been for that, because he's not a roofing guy. He's a completely different, you know, construction-based business. But all of these things kind of blend together. And it's like, this is the network, and knowing the people that you know and learning about their stories along the way, you can't help but love this shit. And I love everything about it. Before we call this episode, you know, complete, I have one final question, and then I got to give a shout out, which let me give a shout out real quick to my sponsors, roofer.com. Josh, I hope you're using Roofer for all your stuff. I know earlier you mentioned a different CRM, but I'm just throwing out here to the world. Roofer is awesome. If you're getting into the industry, if you've got a company, if you're not happy with what you're working with, these guys are amazing. They've sponsored me for the last 3 years. I played golf this morning and I hit Roofer golf balls and I was blasting them off the tee. So not just roofing. These guys are badasses at everything they do, from the initial contact with your homeowner to the final payment, everything in between, and then follow up whenever you want to through their automated stuff. Roofer's the bomb. So there's my plug for Roofer that I mention every single week. Last question I have for you before we call this a day. All of this stuff, you know, when you were a 20-year-old guy, you probably never anticipated any of this. Like, you didn't see this coming at all. But now you've got yourself in, you've got an established reputation, you've built different markets, you're able to go to Wichita, throw something down, do a $500,000 in, you know, 2 weeks, get this stuff going. What's the future look like for you? Do you have a defined plan on when you want to get out of this? Is this something you're going to build to a certain level and then just say, you know what? Adios, fellas, I'm done? Or you just going to keep doing roofing for as long as it's fun? You're going to stick around for the rest of your life? What's the plan look like for you moving forward?
Well, wow, that is that is the $1 million question. That is the behind the curtain, as they say, for the guy.
Hopefully that's more than $1 million question. Hopefully that's like a multiple $1 million question for you.
Yeah. So full circle is the Convo grant, right? We platformed the company in 19. We're like, hey, we're going to go be the 10X roofer. we retained all of our equity and said, gave Grant the big finger. We're not doing it. You're not going to take all my shit. We're not going to go through the SDU. Let's rock and roll and try to do that, but on our own. And we have plans to go to market in PE land in the next probably 90 days. If I can find a non-strategic captive bank that wants to give me a bunch of money for my personal equity and retain me on as CEO for the indefinite future that we have in front of us, and continue to allow us to expand the way that we are and the way that we planned and the way that we have all the things on paper to do and the 16 markets that we have identified and kind of allow us to open up. We have 5 locations that we plan to open next year here in the spring. Kind of through the Ohio, Tennessee Valley, depending on, storm cycles and what the spring weather brings. Naturally, we will open markets on the back of a fresh storm in the areas that we've identified and already put in as that's where we want to be. And so, assuming that the cards on the table all line up appropriately, we'll have been rowing that boat and probably have the majority of my personal equity paid off and backed us into an investment bank here sometime in the next 12 months. I will stay on for probably no less than 3 years, I would guess, as CEO, as we continue to look for that next generation of leaders to be able to step into, what we got and the culture that we have and the cult as we could say it. You can't have a culture without a cult. And so, in all things considered, the future is for me is yes, I'm almost going on 20 years in the roofing industry as a business owner, as head therapist, as payroll, as coach, as marriage counselor, as lender to guys that can't pay the rent, car broker, truck broker, all the hats that we have to wear in a normal 100-hour work week. I put my time in. So I sold the wife the vision and the mission of what we were trying to do and when we were trying to do it. And the reason that we were, it was okay for us to spend the time and go through what we went through was for that end of the rainbow, right? The rainbow was, and that's what it will look like. And we're pretty close to, aligned, right? We're running the gameplay and the plan. So, hopefully, like I said here, we got 12 months or so until I pull some chips off, and then we'll see what the future beyond that looks like. We pseudo retired in about 5 years ago and slowed way down, and I got bored of that real quick. So I can't imagine I'm going to, stay out. A couple of the big guys that were around over the last 15 years or so that had sold Crest, are now rolled up with Apple, and those guys are still pretty well involved in the platform still to this day. So, they took some time off and then, they roll an ebb and flow in the season. So I would expect that the long-term play for me will look something very similar to kind of what those guys have going on.
I love that, man. It's always great to have that plan, and you've got it figured out, dude. I'm super excited for this conversation. This has been one of my favorite. I think this is episode 238 or 239, and this has been one of my absolute favorite ones. You've brought so much value to the table today and so much, true experience from starting from nothing to where you're at today. Absolutely amazing. And I appreciate you taking the time to be on here and tell your story. It means the world to me, and I love doing this podcast for this very reason. So, it's time for us to call it a day, my friend. I kept you a half hour longer than I promised. So I appreciate you for letting me do that. To the people that watch Keepin It Rio, it's not a roofing podcast. It's a world podcast with people that have done all kinds of crazy, amazing, inspiring, entertaining things. And this right here was one of my favorite ones because I think there's a lot of value that anybody can learn from, not just roofers, not just, people that are dreaming, but tangible stuff right here. So thank you all for watching, everybody, my millions of fans all around the world. We're going to take out Joe Rogan one of these days. It's on the vision board, And this is going to be one of those steps that's going to help get us there. So, Josh, thank you for the time, my friend. If you would stick around for just a second after I end this, we'll wrap up our portion. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know how I end Keeping It Rio. I know Josh has watched all 235 previous episodes, so he knows. Until next week, keep on keeping it Rio. We will see you guys next Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. Take care, everybody.
We're Roofer. We know that managing a roofing business can be chaotic, so we created a single platform with all the tools you need to easily run your roofing business. Stop switching between multiple different softwares and experience streamlined operations from lead to payments in hours instead of days. Visit roofr.com to get started for free today.